Welcome to Fresh Off the Boat. My name is Arjun Seth and I run EdBrand. We are a college admissions counseling service based out of New Delhi, India. I'm delighted to be interviewing with Amar Gill, a student I've known for over 16 years now. I remember visiting your high school in Missouri and meeting your teachers and school principal and sort of explaining what the college admissions process is like. And there, obviously, connecting with you and finally working with you to sort of suggest colleges. How was it like, Amar, way back in 2005? I know you have to jog your memory a lot, but when you moved from Chandigarh to East Lansing, Michigan State University, what were you thinking and how did it pan out? If you look at the 4 years you spent there, what are the few takeaways from college that you really remember?
Hey, Arjun, thank you so much for having me. I think the major thing was I was kind of lost. I kind of knew the path I was supposed to go on and the milestones I had to hit, but you kind of really helped me connect a lot of those. Um, I Once I went through those and I came to the United States, there was definitely a significant cultural shock, which when people told me when I was in India, I would have probably laughed at them because I thought, hey, I went to a really good school where we had a lot of diverse people and I should be able to handle that. But I don't think anything in my life could have prepared me for the culture shock I went through once I came here.
Right. And then how did you sort of reflect back now the 4 years? Of course, you adapted well and you've been there for so many years. And you mentioned that you would also come back to India to work earlier in our conversation. But what is it that you remember about college being the most formative, not just academically, but also socially for you?
So I think so one of the big things is like, okay, so one of the first things that like caught my attention was in India, most people don't really make eye contact, right? Like you walk in public and stuff, right? And everyone kind of minds their own business unless you know each other. There's not that much greeting and stuff. Coming to the United States, going to university there, I loved how inviting and kind of warm people were. Everyone's asking you how's your day going, what's going on with you. They're curious to hear about someone from the other side of the globe and how that person got to where they were. A lot of very helpful people, professors who went above and beyond in a lot of cases. So it was different, and it took a while to get used to, if you know what I mean.
Sure. So if you can recall some of your influences, like maybe a professor you really cared about eventually, or seniors, or your current or your batchmates back then, what made life at MSU special for you? Who were these people, or what did you do to have these memories?
Um, I think so. Right when I got there, I ran for the student government and won from my residential hall. So I was in the student government and I met a lot of cool people. Started assimilating quickly into the American culture, and started understanding how democratic even the universities are to a certain extent. From the mentor standpoint, so I actually did 5 years. So I did the dual degree. Um, but for the core stuff, there's a few professors. There was one in my thermodynamics and one in Cal 2 or 3. I can't remember exactly which one right now. But they really helped take the time out outside classes and sit down with me and really help me out and a bunch of stuff. One of the other ones was it's an agricultural school, right? It's a land grant university. And they have welding classes. So I actually use all my elective to pick up a lot of life skills. So my professor for sailing, my professor for welding were actually really cool mentors for dealing with life more than just the professional life, which a lot of people in, say, physics or chemistry or the core subjects which make up your major helped me. The other two I think I should really mention is criminal justice and finance were up there in people teaching me life skills and helping me deal with, I guess it's in the news now, the racial divide in the United States, right? So my criminal justice professor went into deep about what the issues were in America and stuff. And it's kind of crazy to see that come out after all these years in my classes, like the United States kind of dealing with that, right? And the other was finance, as and I feel like that's a critical class to understand what to do once you start earning a decent salary in the United States. How do we intelligently invest in different things? So yeah, so finance, criminal justice, and the third one I'll
Super.
probably say like a pre-law class where you understand what your basic rights are in this country, and how to deal with a lot of situations with respect to the law, and how, because all businesses are kind of run on that. When you
Absolutely.
sign your lease for your apartment to rent a place in the university, what is the landlord's obligations to yours, and how to write an email where you could get the stuff done which you needed to get done in a place of living. So there you
Fantastic.
go.
So very practical. Yeah, I guess the things that you remember about college are unique in the sense because not very often students can identify, okay, financial literacy or aspects of law that help them. So thanks for sharing that. Michigan State University is, like you said, a big land grant institution. It's a public university mandated to educate students from the state. Uh, and what is the setting like? What is it that really worked for you there? And you got involved pretty quickly too, so that's great. Uh, Describe MSU as a place for someone who's considering college choices.
So Michigan State is this gorgeous university with tons of land, and about I forget what the numbers, somewhere around 40-50,000 kids come there every year. Big chunk of them are international students. The university definitely has a priority in helping those students assimilate or just get oriented really quickly and understand what are the requirements there and how life is over there. Um, it's it's a party school, that's for sure, and there's a stereotype to that, and so is Arizona and a lot of other places. But it's got a very good engineering school, very good, well-funded business school, right? So once if you do end up going in the automotive industry, it's a very good stepping stone because the engineering department is well funded by one of the big three. So back when I was there, I think Pontiac, which is no longer a brand of GM, heavily funded the engineering department. So you'll meet all the right people from Detroit for the big three coming up and picking kids up for that. Or, Kellogg, which I didn't know back then, this multinational company which makes cereal for around the world, is from Kalamazoo, Michigan. So they're picking up a lot of people from there as well. Tier one, tier twos for the automotive industry, and also if you look at it, I think there's a lot of companies which are defense contractors or railway, like CSX, etc. So there's a very diverse group of companies which are picking up their candidates for diversity or
Interesting.
increasing their company footprint from Michigan State, because they're not as expensive as picking up someone from, say, Ivy League school, right? Someone coming out
Got
of
it.
Ivy League school can easily be picking up a salary 90K plus. Michigan State's closer to like the median for a like an entry level job on a lot of majors. But then again, they have a phenomenal business school. Most of my friends were English majors or music majors. I happened to be in that dorm, so it's a very diverse university which feeds a lot of different industries. There you
Fascinating,
go.
fascinating. I remember when you were applying, you were always thinking of cars and designing cars and mechanical engineering and all of that. And you have a family, your father runs an engineering sort of hydroelectric sort of plant and all of that. So you had that disposition, so to speak. How did you discover your interests and eventually did a major in industrial design, sort of, and supply chain management, which is got to do with the business school, I believe? And how does it
Yes.
work?
So once I got in, I realized um, I met a lot of people who were in the field through my exposure at Michigan State. And a lot of the professors were generous enough to give me their time off classes to discuss different careers in engineering. So, I think a big part of selecting something you're going to do for the rest of your life is meeting the people who did it, right? So are you a person who can spend the next 7 months, 6 days a week running heavy shifts in a factory? Or are you a person who's more comfortable sitting on a CAD machine designing a layout of a factory? Or are you more of a person who's more people, centric? Like, so for me, industrial engineering, and I did applied engineering, which is a combination of all the base engineering courses, and you specialize. I did in manufacturing processes and a couple others, and you do your capstone project at the end of the engineering. But I realized real quick that I enjoyed people significantly more, which is part of IE, right? So industrial engineering, you go and standardize work, you standardize layouts. That's a lot of things which are, what would be the average way of doing this? What are the outliers in that process? And how do I, set it up so that it's easy for people and machines and designers to pick up and go and do those things. So you're interacting with architects or, we'll have so something like people who are putting the robots and the machinery in, they're called integrators. You're working with them, you're working with labor, you're doing time studies, you're setting up a lot of future things which are going to happen in plants. So I like that aspect of moving things around, but at the same time, I really enjoyed business school. A lot of engineers actually not very good at accepting the rules of accounting. So I thrived in accounting 201, 202, which was a weeding out class. And the econ finance supply chain classes I excelled in. So it was, I understood what me and my personality was by the end of college, and I kind of refocused my path with my career based on the classes I was taking.
So great. After graduating, you've done several things, and now you're working at Fiat Chrysler. And
Yes.
there's, of course, that's where they're headquartered now in Detroit.
Yes, so in a suburb of Detroit, it's called Auburn Hills. They
Mhm.
have their headquarters. I work out of the headquarters, but I mostly handle a lot of suppliers in Canada, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois. A couple of them are down in North Carolina and a couple other places. So I have
So in a
a
way, you
region.
applied what you learned. So you're doing, in a way, supply chain management, but a lot more than that, vendor management and
Yes. So
relations.
it's so in a plant, right? If you look at a plant, there's going to be production lines. They're going to be what we call feeder lines. So you know you have sub assemblies feeding into main assembly lines, and then you might have one or two or five main assembly lines, and they kick up product, right? But in order for the plant to run, there's things coming in the plant, right? So there's trucks showing up to the dock, they take out stuff, they bring it to the sub-assembly line, the main line, people assemble it, and then you remove all the expendable packaging or returnable packaging. It goes back out in storage and it goes out. So it is essentially a differential equation. I know it sounds
Yeah.
really nerdy, but it's the old lake equation where there's water coming in, water going out, right? And so what I do is, with my knowledge of industrial engineering and supply chain management, I can run simulations for what will happen in the plant. So I'm currently a simulation engineer at FCA, and I take my knowledge, which I learned in logistics, supply chain, working with suppliers, and then also working in production line to make simulations. So you don't want someone making simulation who doesn't understand the subject at hand, because he or she could be making bad assumptions to make the model, right? You want someone who knows the process inside out, so that you're keeping safety, ergonomics, and the days on hand you need to protect the main plant for in your mind when designing everything. So
Fascinating. So yeah, that's a very good summary. It seems that there would be many operations research tools, and there will be constant improvements in the way technology is used with AI, ML, and all that data that's now become very sort of popular. Do you also have to then upgrade yourself, upskill yourself, and learn computer science, coding? Will it help for someone to be in a job like that you do to have a background in coding, or it's not really required?
I think understanding that. So I did take CSE and a couple other courses for coding, right? Um, I would prefer to watch paint dry than decode something I came up on the fly with. But once you understand the basics of coding in whatever language, my language of choice is Python, right? But a lot of the systems which are run for factories could be Siemens or a bunch of like the big multinational companies write that stuff, and it's from back in the day. If you understand how they were coded or what you're doing, the logic of how to set it up, it's very easy to work with process engineers. It's very easy to work with mechanical engineers, etc. Even in CAD layouts, right? If you're making a drawing which is repetitive, right? If you're making a block in a CAD drawing, and you have to make 500,000 of them, it would be a lot faster if I wrote a 15-minute code and it just ran it inside the program as a bot, right? So I think coding is important. Data analytics is very important. Understanding basic statistics is very important, right? So, Arjun, like a
Yeah.
set of data comes to you, you don't know how to decide what a good decision to make off of it, right? So you need to stratify the data, get into a format where it makes sense. That's number one. Analyze the data, visualize the data. It's a lot easier to look at a small chart which is covering 15 years over 5 million lines of data, right? The chart will summarize it for you a lot easier. Understanding how charting works, et cetera, right? What are the key performance indicators? And from that, you make a decision and you drive your action items. So that's like the 101 engineering thing, right?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
stratify something, you analyze it properly, you look at the root cause, and then you figure out your action items from that. So there you go.
Super. So it's just very interesting to see that a practitioner. Very often I'm interviewing students and they don't have that erudition to sort of see what their jobs would eventually end up sort of looking like and the kind of depth that they need to build out in the future. So
Right.
my next question, Amar, is more to do with you as a person. We got some information about the work that you do, which is fascinating. And I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. Number one, what are the three words that describe your strengths? What do you think those would be?
I think organize is team player a one word.
Yeah, it's fine. You can qualify it.
Yeah, so organized, team player, and level-headed.
Okay. Second question. I'm sure in your life, in your journey, not just in college, but also beyond at work, you've probably failed or been embarrassed or failed, or rather gone through very difficult times. What can you think of, and what were the reflections from such moments?
I think it's take, you have to lose in order to win, or you need to fail in order to learn something, right? Take those things in stride and quickly learn from them and don't repeat them.
Yeah. So, if you were to give advice to high school students or even college students currently, uh, what do you think they should do to deal with uncertainty, given that there is so much uncertainty about colleges not opening, in-person classes not happening, or even internships being cancelled or deferred, jobs being sort of also rescinded? How do you deal with sort of disappointments and dejections?
I think uncertainty, or as we quantify it as risk, is always there, right? So if right now what's happening with the universities, it's it's understandable considering where the world is right now. But online classes are not too bad. Like if you have the knack to learn, the important thing is understanding how to learn efficiently. Either if you're in a classroom setting or a team setting, or if you're by yourself, get the knack to know how to learn things. That's the most important thing. So I think you should concentrate on that and concentrate on your long-term plans, and don't let the short term affect your judgment right now.
Thanks, Amar. It's been just fantastic reconnecting with you after more than 15 years now. Looking forward to not waiting for another 15 years, but being in touch with you more often. We are organizing a few panels and sessions, and I'm sure your experience and wisdom, words of wisdom, would be encouraging to our audiences. I'll let you know about what those are, and if possible, figure out how to schedule those. Thanks again.
Absolutely.